Okay, time for my second guest, Dr. Gleb Tsipursky. Gleb is passionate about two things, helping people think more clearly and advancing global flourishing. These passions combined into one when he and his wife Agnes co-founded Intentional Insights in 2014. Since that time, he's collaborated with a group of like-minded enthusiasts to translate research on rational thinking, wrong show, Gleb, sorry, emotional intelligence, and effective giving into daily life strategies that advance global flourishings. He's always excited about such ideas, leading him to get a PhD in the history of science, researching the intersection of psychology, cognitive neuroscience, and behavioral economics. He currently holds a tenure-track professorship at The Ohio State University and is a member of the Decision Sciences Collaborative there. He publishes dozens of peer-reviewed essays in academic venues in the U.S., U.K., France, Germany, Russia, and elsewhere, as well as numerous popular articles, and serves on a number of boards, for instance, as the science advisor on the Planet Purpose Advisory Board. Woo! Welcome to the show, Gleb. Wowzer. Excited to have you here.
Thanks so much. I'm excited to be here too, Judy.
Awesome. So I want to start with the discussion of the day. We were talking about intuition. Is this something that can help in the success of a business?
Oh gosh, absolutely. Intuition is really important to listen to. Many people who are very logic-oriented, they think that logic and reason and rationality is all about cold, hard reasoning. But really, research shows that about 80% of our decision-making comes from emotions, and emotions help us make good decisions most of the time. Now, there are some systematic areas where intuition goes wrong, and we can talk about that. But most of the time, we should align our activities with our intuitions.
Okay. Now, we always hear that intuition is a female quality. Do you believe that men are also intuitive?
Absolutely. Well, men are taught by our society to repress our intuitions and our emotions, and that's very harmful because intuitions often tell us things that our reasoning and logical side doesn't tell us. So there are a number of things that we can learn from intuition that are not told to us by reason and logic. That's one. Second, intuition has a lot to do with motivation. So if we go along with our intuition, we will most likely be more motivated to do the things that we're actually doing. So intuition can be helpful both for knowledge and for motivation.
Okay, so your goal is to help people avoid disaster through science-based decision-making and emotional and social intelligence. So Is that an alternative to listening to your gut or your intuition? Because most people don't think that intuition is definitely, is a science-based concept. So is that kind of the same thing?
So it's not at all about denying your intuitions. It's about combining your head with your heart. Your brain with your gut, in other words, to make the best decisions. It's often referred to as wise mind. And so it's not simply intuition, it's not simply reason, it's combining both. Because as I mentioned a little bit earlier in the show, there are a number of systematic ways where our intuitions go wrong. And so these are the ways that it's important to address and prevent these problems from plaguing us. For example, one of the ways that our intuitions go wrong is what's called the sunken cost effect. And this is a systematic error where we tend to throw good money after bad. When we're already committed to a project, when let's say we're committed to a business rollout of a venture, and we tend to put into more money and more efforts into it. Let's say we have a business relationship, put more and more efforts into it. When there's some part of us that already knows that it's not going to work out well, but just because we're doing it and we feel like we don't want to let that person down, we keep doing more and more of it. And this is especially a tendency for women who are less likely to break up collaborative business relationships than men. So they tend to get more into these long patterns of unhelpful business relationships. And so this is when intuition can lead us awry. It can lead us in the wrong direction. So that's one of the many ways where it's important to catch these problematic habits of our intuition and steer them in the more logical and reasonable direction.
Well, here's the interesting part. I do think that a lot of times women know that they're not going in the right direction, but they really, and we were just talking to Jessica about this, sometimes you just really want it more than the other person does or doesn't, and so you really try to push ahead and push ahead and push ahead, and by that time you've already lost tens of thousands of dollars and hundreds of hours and everything else, and yet we tend to do that again.
Yes, so women tend to do it again, and men sometimes do it less so, because there are times, and this is one of those times, when intuition can lead us awry. And this intuition, women tend to be less likely to break up business relationships that are problematic and unhealthy for them, because they want to please. And so here's where intuition leads to pleasing, where our society teaches women especially that they should please their business collaborators, whether they be women or men, that they should be pleasing and polite and generous and so on. And that's where intuition needs to be retrained and steered in a different direction. And so this is one of the many areas where intuition can lead us into the wrong direction.
Yeah, that's true. Okay, so let's turn this a little bit. We always talk about in business, you want to find your passion and your purpose, and you put it together, and it becomes this amazing thing. Talk to us about the concept of how to find your purpose using science.
Sure. So purpose from a science-based, so many people, when they look for purpose, they turn to traditional sources, which is usually religion. However, there are many people for whom that doesn't really speak so well. Their sense of purpose is not aligned with a religious perspective. Whether they go to church, whether they don't go to church, many religious folks don't have a strong sense of purpose. Now, I've written a book called Find Your Purpose Using Science, which is about helping those many people for whom religion doesn't do justice to their current sense of purpose. And this is a book that, again, religious people and secular people alike read and enjoy and appreciate, because it uses the science and how we actually find a sense of meaning and purpose. And there are four big ways of finding a sense of meaning and purpose. One is to know your long-term goals, so figure out your long-term goals and aspirations, and align your everyday activities with your long-term goals and aspirations. That's one. Second is self-reflecting on your long-term goals and aspirations and how they align with your activities. So not simply doing the thing, but being conscious of how you're doing these things. Third is getting a sense of community. So community belonging, especially important for women, for men as well, but having that strong sense of community belonging correlates strongly with a sense of meaning and purpose. And finally, serving others outside of yourself. So not being self-centered, but orienting toward various community activities, philanthropy, donations, charity. Those are four things, the four big things, aligned with meaning and purpose from a science-based perspective.
Interesting. Very interesting. Okay, so the other day I posted a question asking about street smarts and book smarts and finding out which camp people were in. And it was funny because most people chose one or the other, but a lot of people said they were both. So talk to us about being a book smart versus street smart, and which camp are you in?
Good question. So I think I have found that it's really impossible to be smart if you're not both.
I think that's why people pick both.
Yes. So I think those are the really wise people, because street smarts are people who start on the street. They get really good in their experience, whatever they had, the kind of experience they had, but they don't know about the things that they don't know, the things that they wouldn't have had the experience with. So I have a number of friends who didn't have, let's say, a college education. They're very smart, and they're very good friends, and they're really smart people, but they have a number of gaps in their knowledge where they don't know what they don't know. And so that's a problem. Now, book smarts is sort of the opposite problem. You kind of know everything in theory, but there are lots of things that aren't written about in books that are in practice really different. You know, it's the same, the difference between reading a book about how Steve Jobs started his business and other entrepreneurs started their business, and and actually starting a business.
Right.
Two very different things.
Right.
So both of these are important in order to be actually smart, I would say.
Okay, good answer. Okay, so tell us about your company, Intentional Insights.
Yes, so it's a nonprofit organization that popularizes research on decision making and emotional intelligence in business, in politics, in relationships, other areas of life as well. And one offer I have for anyone who is listening to this show is that we created a tip and guidelines sheet on avoiding disasters in economic situation, relationships, in civic engagement, all sorts of life areas. And for those who email me and tell me they heard me on this show, Selling in a Skirt, will get a free copy of this sheet. My email is gleb@intentionalinsights.org. And so you can email me at gleb@intentionalinsights.org, and you'll get a free copy of this tip sheet if you tell me you heard me on Selling in a Skirt.
Awesome. Okay, so if you knew then what you know now, would you change anything?
About the organization?
About you, about what you're doing and everything, the organization, about,
Yes. Yeah, I would absolutely change things in my earlier life. In fact, it's funny that you asked. The way that my wife and I co-founded this organization, so she and I co-founded it, and she has an MBA in nonprofit management, so she knows how to run the organization. I have more of the expertise in content, the kind of stuff we're talking about, the science. And the reason we founded it is because we had so many conversations about psychology and so on, where we said, I wish they taught us this in high school. I wish they taught us this earlier. And our lives would have been so much better off, would have had so much less stress, so much less suffering, so much less wasted time. I mean, the sunken cost thing that we talked about, that's something that I experienced earlier onward, and that's not something that I suffer from nearly so much right now. And neither does my wife, neither do other people who engage in this organization, engage in this content. We don't see all the ways that we suffer. We don't see all the ways that we are stressed. We don't see all the ways that we waste our time and our efforts and our money and our resources and our relationships. And only by actually learning about how to have better thinking, feeling, and behavior patterns can we move forward in the most optimal way possible. That's the only thing we can control in life, our thoughts, feelings, and behaviors. Mm-hmm. And that's what the organization is aimed to help people improve. I really wish I had the benefits of this organization earlier, and I didn't have to create it.
I know. But look how far you've come. It's all about timing. It's all about timing. So, yeah. So how can our listeners get in touch with you for anything, not just for the tip list? Same thing?
So they can email me at Gleb, G-L-E-B, @intentionalinsights.org. That's easy. They can look up the organization to see articles and videos on these topics. So intentionalinsights.org is the website, and they're welcome to it. Now, if they want to contact me, I do consulting and coaching on decision-making, social and emotional intelligence. My website is glebtsipursky.org. You can look up my name, just Google it, Gleb Tsipursky. Take a look at the show notes. It will be there. So glebtsipursky.com will be the website if you want to look me up.
Awesome. Okay, last question for you. So there's millions of women listening. So what do you want to say to them?
I think that women really need to think about their own decision-making and recognize that some of their decision-making is different. Decision-making styles are different from men, and that's great. It's important to not simply read business literature and think that the same things that apply for a general audience apply to you, which is why I appreciate that Selling in a Skirt exists and other such women-to-women radio shows that adapt the existing materials and content to the specific needs of women. So,
awesome. Well, Gleb, I want to thank you so much for taking the time to join me on the show. It was fascinating, and I know that there's going to be some great things going forward for you, and I'm excited for you.
Thank you so much. I'm excited to have been on the show, and I really appreciate what you do, Judy.
Thank you so much.